The blizzard howled like a beast, tearing through the Maine wilderness, and Ethan Caldwell's truck was the only light piercing the whiteout. He was 28, rugged from years of hauling lumber, but his heart raced as he spotted 3 small shapes huddled by a ditch, their silhouettes barely visible through the snow. They were boys, lost and freezing, and Ethan knew they wouldn't survive the night without him. He slammed the brakes, the truck skidding on black ice, and leapt out into the storm. The wind bit at his face as he ran to them, his work boots sinking into the snow. "Hey, you kids okay?" he shouted, voice nearly swallowed by the gale. The boys, no older than 12, were shivering, their faces pale and lips blue. They wore thin jackets, not nearly enough for a night like this, and their eyes held a mix of fear and defiance. Ethan didn't hesitate. He scooped the smallest one into his arms, guiding the others to his truck, where he cranked the heat and wrapped them in an old wool blanket from the back seat. "What are you doing out here?" Ethan asked, his voice gruff but kind, as he handed them a thermos of coffee he'd meant for himself. The boys, Jake, Liam, and Noah, mumbled about running away from a group home in Bangor. They didn't trust adults, they said, but Ethan's steady presence, his calloused hands offering warmth, made them stay quiet instead of bolting. He drove them to his cabin, a modest place nestled in the pines, and fed them soup by a crackling fire. That night, as the storm raged, Ethan became their anchor, promising to keep them safe until morning. By dawn, the snow had slowed, and Ethan called the local sheriff to report the boys. He didn't know their full story: abuse, neglect, a system that had failed them, but he knew they needed more than a night's shelter. Over the next week, he worked with social services to ensure they weren't sent back to the same broken home. Jake, the eldest, had a sharp tongue but clung to Ethan's every word. Liam, quiet and watchful, sketched pine trees in a tattered notebook. Noah, the youngest, followed Ethan like a shadow, asking questions about the forest. Ethan didn't have much, just a truck, a cabin, and a heart too big for his own good, but he gave them everything he could. Years passed, and Ethan's life took a different turn. He moved to Portland, Maine, chasing a quieter existence as a carpenter. There, he met Caleb Monroe, a soft-spoken librarian with wire-rimmed glasses and a laugh that made Ethan's chest ache. Their first date was at a diner, where Caleb spilled coffee on his shirt, and Ethan, grinning, handed him a napkin. It was simple, unguarded, and perfect. They fell hard, their love a quiet rebellion against a world that didn't always understand. Ethan, who'd spent years hiding his truth in small-town Maine, finally felt free with Caleb. They built a life together, shared books, late-night talks, and dreams of a future where they could be themselves without fear. But Portland wasn't as open as they'd hoped. Whispers followed them, disapproving glances at the grocery store, slurs scrawled on their mailbox. Ethan brushed it off, his lumberjack frame and steady demeanor a shield, but Caleb felt the weight. "We're not doing anything wrong," Caleb would say, his voice trembling. Ethan would pull him close, promising they'd outlast the hate. Still, the tension grew, a storm brewing beneath the surface of their idyllic life. One winter, the past came knocking. Jake, now 22, showed up at Ethan's workshop, his face hardened by years but his eyes unmistakable. He was taller, broader, with a tattoo of a pine tree on his forearm. "You saved us back then," Jake said, voice low. "I never forgot." He tracked Ethan down, and soon Liam and Noah followed. The 3 boys, now men, had carved out lives of their own. Jake a mechanic, Liam an artist, Noah a college student. But they carried the weight of their childhoods. They also carried a secret they hadn't shared back then, one that bound them to Ethan in ways he couldn't have imagined. The reunion wasn't just nostalgia. Portland's underbelly had stirred, and a local group, calling themselves Defenders of Tradition, had targeted Ethan and Caleb. Flyers appeared around town, accusing them of corrupting the community. Caleb's library job was threatened, and Ethan's workshop was vandalized. The boys, now men, saw the news online and came to stand by the man who'd once stood by them. But their support came with a revelation. Each of them had come out as gay in the years since that snowy night, inspired by Ethan's quiet courage. They hadn't known it then, but his kindness had given them the strength to face their own truths. As threats escalated, Ethan and Caleb faced a choice: hide or fight. Ethan wanted to protect Caleb, to run if it meant keeping him safe. But Caleb, usually gentle, was resolute. "We're not running," he said, his voice steady for the first time in weeks. Jake, Liam, and Noah rallied behind them, their loyalty fierce. Together, they planned to confront the hate group, not with fists but with a public stand. A rally for love and acceptance in the heart of Portland. The stage was set for a showdown, one that would test their courage and rewrite their futures. The rally was scheduled for a frigid February evening, and tension hung thick in the air. Ethan stood at the community center, Caleb's hand in his, as Jake, Liam, and Noah helped organize the crowd. Supporters gathered, friends, neighbors, strangers moved by their story, but so did the defenders. Their signs venomous and voices loud. Ethan's heart pounded, not for himself but for Caleb and the boys he'd once saved. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about every person who'd ever felt silenced. As the first speaker took the stage, Ethan felt Caleb's fingers tighten around his, a silent vow to face whatever came next together. The community center buzzed with nervous energy, a sea of faces lit by flickering streetlights outside. Ethan scanned the crowd, his broad shoulders tense, as Caleb adjusted his glasses and whispered, "We're doing the right thing." But the defenders of tradition loomed at the edges, their signs branding Ethan and Caleb as outsiders in their own town. Jake took the microphone first, his voice steady but raw. 10 years ago, a man pulled me and my brothers out of a snowstorm," he began, eyes locked on the crowd. "He didn't know us anything, but he saved our lives." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Jake's gaze flicked to Ethan, a flicker of gratitude passing between them. "That man's standing here tonight, and he's being attacked for who he loves. I'm here because I'm like him. I'm gay, and I'm not ashamed." The room erupted, some in cheers, others in jeers. Ethan's throat tightened. He hadn't known Jake's truth until now. Liam stepped up next, his artist's hands trembling as he held a sketch of the pine forest where Ethan had found them. "I was 11, scared, and lost," he said softly. "Ethan gave me a pencil and paper that night, told me to draw what I felt. I've been drawing ever since, and I've been hiding who I am. Not anymore." He tore the sketch in half, a symbolic break from his silence, and the crowd's cheers grew louder. Noah, the youngest, followed, his college sweatshirt rumpled but his voice clear. "Ethan taught me I could be more than my past. I'm here for him and for me. I'm gay too." The revelations hit Ethan like a tidal wave. He'd saved them as boys, but he hadn't realized how deeply their lives had intertwined with his. Caleb squeezed his hand, tears in his eyes, as the crowd's energy shifted. Supporters clapped, some wept, but the defenders grew louder. Their leader, a burly man named Roy, shouting slurs from the back. Ethan's instinct was to shield Caleb, to pull him away, but Caleb stood firm. "Let them speak," he whispered. "This is bigger than us." The rally continued, with local activists sharing stories of love and loss. A teacher spoke of being fired for coming out. A teenager recounted hiding her identity from her parents. Each story built a wall of solidarity, but the defenders weren't backing down. Roy stormed the stage, his face red with rage, and shoved Jake, who stumbled but caught himself. Ethan surged forward, his carpenter's strength ready to intervene, but Jake held up a hand. "We don't fight like them," he said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. The room quieted, tension crackling. Instead, Jake turned to Roy. "You call us unnatural? I was 12, freezing to death, and Ethan was the only one who cared. What's unnatural about that?" Roy faltered, his followers shifting uncomfortably. Liam and Noah flanked Jake, their presence a quiet strength. Ethan felt a swell of pride, but fear lingered. The defenders weren't done. That night, as the rally ended, Ethan and Caleb returned home to find their windows smashed. A brick on their living room floor with a note. "Leave or else." Caleb's hands shook as he read it, but he didn't cry. "We're not leaving," he said, voice firm. Ethan wanted to argue, to protect Caleb at all costs, but he saw the fire in his partner's eyes. The boys stayed over, refusing to let them face the threat alone. Around the kitchen table, they planned their next move. Jake suggested going to the press, Liam proposed an art installation to rally more support, and Noah, ever practical, researched legal protections. Ethan marveled at their courage, but guilt gnawed at him. Had his kindness all those years ago pulled them into this danger? The next day, Portland's local paper ran a story on the rally, quoting Jake's speech and naming the defenders as a hate group. The article went viral, shared across social media, and support poured in: donations, letters, even a local church offering sanctuary. But so did the threats. The defenders doubled down, posting Ethan and Caleb's address online, urging action. Ethan's workshop was hit again, tools stolen, and Caleb's library received anonymous calls. The couple's quiet life was unraveling, and Ethan wondered if love was worth this cost. Yet Caleb refused to break. He organized a second rally, bigger this time, and the boys threw themselves into it. Jake repaired Ethan's workshop, Liam painted murals of hope across town, and Noah rallied his college friends to join. Ethan watched them, his heart torn between fear and awe. These men, once lost boys, were fighting for him now, their bond forged in snow and strengthened by truth. As the second rally loomed, Ethan knew the stakes were higher. The defenders were planning something bigger, and he feared not everyone would walk away unscathed. Snow fell again on Portland, a cruel echo of that night a decade ago, as Ethan and Caleb prepared for the second rally. The community center was packed, standing room only, with supporters waving rainbow flags and handmade signs. But outside, the defenders of tradition gathered, their numbers swollen, faces masked by scarves and hate. Ethan stood backstage, his calloused hands fidgeting with a hammer charm Caleb had given him for luck. "This feels like a war," he muttered, glancing at Caleb, whose calm exterior hid a storm of nerves. "It's not a war," Caleb replied, adjusting his glasses. "It's a stand." Jake, Liam, and Noah were nearby, coordinating volunteers. Jake's jaw was set, Liam's sketchbook now filled with portraits of the crowd, and Noah's phone buzzed with updates from allies. They were a unit, bound by loyalty and purpose. The rally began with music, a local band playing a haunting cover of "Stand By Me." Caleb spoke first, his voice soft but unwavering. "Love doesn't destroy communities. Hate does," he said, eyes scanning the crowd. "We're here to build, not break." The applause was thunderous, but Ethan noticed Roy, the defenders' leader, pushing through the crowd, his followers trailing like a dark tide. Ethan's gut twisted. He'd faced storms before, but this one felt personal. Jake took the stage next, his mechanic's hands gripping the microphone. "I was a kid who didn't trust anyone," he said. "Ethan showed me kindness exists. Now I'm standing for him, and for every kid like me who's scared to be themselves." The crowd roared, but Roy shouted over them, "You're tearing this town apart." Jake didn't flinch. "No, you are," he shot back. "Hate doesn't get to win." Liam and Noah joined him, their presence amplifying his words. Liam held up a new sketch, a portrait of Ethan and Caleb, their hands clasped, with the words "Love endures" scrawled beneath. The crowd chanted it, a mantra against the chaos. But the defenders weren't there to talk. As the speeches ended, they surged forward, knocking over barriers. Ethan instinctively pulled Caleb behind him, his heart pounding. Jake, Liam, and Noah formed a human wall, shielding the stage. "Stay back," Jake yelled, his voice cutting through the noise. The crowd was a mix of screams and cheers, supporters clashing with protesters. Ethan saw a flash of metal, a knife in Roy's hand, and his blood ran cold. He shoved Caleb toward the back exit, shouting, "Go!" But Caleb refused, grabbing Ethan's arm. "We face this together." The chaos escalated until police arrived, separating the groups. No one was stabbed, but bruises and cuts marked the crowd. Ethan's hammer charm was lost in the scuffle, a small but stinging loss. The defenders were pushed back, but their threats lingered in the air. That night, Ethan, Caleb, and the boys regrouped at the house, shaken but unbroken. Jake's knuckles were bloody from pushing back a protester. Liam's sketchbook was torn, and Noah's phone was cracked, but their resolve was intact. "We can't stop now," Caleb said, bandaging Jake's hand. Ethan disagreed. "This is too dangerous. I won't let you all get hurt for me." Jake laughed bitterly. "You don't get it, Ethan. You saved us. We're not letting you go down." Liam nodded, sketching absently. "You gave us a home that night. This is ours." Noah, usually the quietest, spoke up. "We're family. Families fight together." Ethan's eyes stung. He'd never had a family, not really, until now. The next morning, the news was mixed. The rally had galvanized support, thousands had seen the viral videos, and donations poured in for a local LGBTQ+ center. But the defenders hadn't backed down. Roy posted a video online, calling for a final stand at a town hall meeting the following week. Ethan's workshop was hit again, this time with spray paint reading freak. Caleb's library banned him from work, citing safety concerns. The pressure was suffocating, but the boys refused to let Ethan and Caleb face it alone. They devised a plan, not for another rally, but for something bolder. Liam's art connections secured a gallery space, where he'd display a series of portraits. Ethan, Caleb, and others who'd faced hate. Jake and Noah organized a peaceful march to the town hall, where they'd demand protection from the city. Ethan was skeptical, but Caleb's optimism was infectious. "We're not just fighting for us," Caleb said. "We're fighting for everyone who comes after." As the town hall loomed, Ethan felt the weight of their shared past and the hope of their shared future, knowing the next move could change everything. The gallery opening was a beacon in Portland's gray winter, its walls lined with Liam's portraits, vibrant, raw, each one a story of resilience. Ethan's face, weathered but kind, stared back from a canvas, next to Caleb's, his eyes soft behind glasses. The crowd was diverse, artists, activists, families, drawn by the viral story of the man who'd saved 3 boys and the men they'd become. Ethan stood in the corner, uneasy in the spotlight, as Caleb mingled, his warmth disarming skeptics. Liam explained his work to a reporter, pointing to a painting of the snowstorm night, the boys' faces illuminated by Ethan's truck lights. "This is where it started," Liam said. "He gave us a future." Jake and Noah handed out flyers for the town hall march, their energy relentless. Ethan marveled at their transformation, boys once lost, now leading. But the defenders of tradition cast a shadow. Roy and his group picketed outside, their signs crude but their numbers smaller. The city was shifting. Support for Ethan and Caleb grew, fueled by the boys' story. Still, Ethan's gut churned. He'd overheard whispers of a planned disruption at the town hall, something bigger than protests. He told Caleb that night, his voice low, "We should cancel the march. It's not safe." Caleb shook his head. "If we stop, they win. We've got too many people with us now." The morning of the town hall, Portland woke to fresh snow, a cruel reminder of the past. The march began at dawn, a stream of hundreds. Queer youth, allies, even the sheriff who'd helped Ethan years ago. Jake led the front, his pine tree tattoo visible under his rolled-up sleeves. Liam carried a banner with his Love Endures sketch, and Noah chanted slogans, his voice carrying over the crowd. Ethan and Caleb walked hand in hand, their breath visible in the cold, their love a quiet defiance. The town hall was packed, the air thick with anticipation. The mayor, a cautious man named Ellis, had agreed to hear their case for stronger hate crime protections. Caleb spoke first, his librarian's precision cutting through the room. "We're not asking for special treatment," he said. "We're asking for safety, for the right to live without fear." The crowd applauded, but Roy and his group, seated in the back, heckled loudly. Ethan tensed, ready to intervene, but Jake's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "Let them dig their own grave," Jake whispered. Noah took the stage, presenting data on hate crimes in Maine, his college research lending weight to their cause. Liam followed, unveiling a new mural design for the town square, a tribute to acceptance. The room was with them, but Roy stood, his voice booming. "This is about family values," he shouted. "You're pushing an agenda." The defenders cheered, but the crowd drowned them out, chanting, "Love endures." Ethan felt a surge of hope, but it was short-lived. As the meeting ended, chaos erupted. A group of defenders blocked the exits, shouting threats. Ethan pulled Caleb close, scanning for Jake, Liam, and Noah. The boys were already moving, guiding supporters to safety. But Roy cornered Ethan in the hallway, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can change this town?" he spat. Before Ethan could respond, Jake stepped between them, his frame unyielding. "Back off, Roy. You're done here." Roy swung, but Jake dodged, and security swarmed, dragging Roy away. The aftermath was a blur. The mayor promised action, spurred by the public outcry. The defenders were investigated, their leaders facing charges for vandalism and threats. Ethan and Caleb's home was quiet that night. The boys sprawled on their couch, exhausted but triumphant. Ethan looked at them. Jake's bruised knuckles, Liam's torn sketchbook, Noah's cracked phone, and felt a love so deep it hurt. "You didn't have to do this," he said. Noah grinned. "Yeah, we did. You saved us first." But the fight wasn't over. The defenders had lost ground, but their rhetoric lingered, and Ethan knew hate didn't vanish overnight. Caleb, ever the optimist, planned a community workshop to educate on acceptance, while Liam's mural was approved for the town square. Jake and Noah vowed to stay in Portland to keep fighting. As Ethan watched them, he realized this was their legacy. Not just surviving, but building something better. The town hall had been a turning point, but the true test lay ahead, in the quiet moments where courage would shape their future. Spring broke over Portland, the snow melting into rivers that ran through the streets, carrying away the winter's weight. Ethan and Caleb's home, once a target, now felt like a sanctuary, its walls filled with Liam's sketches and Noah's books. The town square bore Liam's mural, a vibrant scene of hands clasped, faces of all kinds, with "Love endures" in bold letters. The defenders of tradition had faded, their leaders disgraced after arrests, but Ethan knew healing a town took more than victory. The community workshop Caleb organized was a quiet success. Neighbors who'd once whispered now listened, learning about the pain of exclusion and the power of acceptance. Jake taught kids to fix bikes at the community center, his gruff exterior softening with each laugh. Liam's art classes filled up, his students painting their own stories of hope. Noah, now a junior, led a campus group advocating for queer rights, his voice growing stronger with each speech. Ethan watched them, his heart full but heavy with the cost of their fight. One evening, as the sun set over the square, Ethan and Caleb sat on a bench, the mural glowing behind them. Caleb rested his head on Ethan's shoulder, a rare moment of peace. "We made it through," Caleb said, his voice soft. Ethan nodded, but his eyes lingered on the horizon. "Not everyone does," he replied, thinking of the stories they'd heard. Lives lost to hate, families torn apart. Caleb took his hand. "That's why we keep going. For them." The boys joined them, Jake carrying coffee, Liam with a new sketch, Noah with a book he swore Ethan had to read. They sat together, a family forged not by blood but by choice. Jake broke the silence. "I used to think I'd never belong anywhere," he said. That night in the snow. You showed me I could. Liam nodded, adding, You gave us a reason to be brave. Noah, ever direct, said, You're stuck with us now, Ethan. Deal with it. Laughter broke the tension, a sound sweeter than any victory. Portland wasn't perfect. Whispers lingered in corners, and some faces still turned away. But the city was changing slowly, stubbornly. The mayor passed new protections, citing Ethan and Caleb's story. The library rehired Caleb, and Ethan's workshop thrived, his furniture now in homes across Maine. The boys, once lost, had found their place, not just in Portland but in a world they were making better. One night, Ethan found a package on their porch, a small wooden box, carved with a pine tree. Inside was his hammer charm, lost in the rally chaos, now polished and gleaming. A note read, You saved us. We'll always save you back. JLN. Ethan's eyes burned as he showed Caleb, who smiled through tears. They hung the charm above their fireplace, a reminder of the night that started it all. The story didn't end with a grand gesture or a final battle. It lived in the quiet moments, Jake's laughter with a kid fixing a bike chain, Liam's brushstrokes on a canvas, Noah's voice at a rally, Caleb's hand in Ethan's. They'd faced a storm, not just of snow but of hate, and emerged stronger, together. Their fight wasn't over, but their love was a fire that wouldn't fade. Years later, people in Portland would tell their story, not just of a man who saved 3 boys in a blizzard, but of how those boys, grown and brave, stood up to save him. It was a tale of courage, of love that endured, and of a family built on the belief that no one should face the cold alone. Ethan, Caleb, Jake, Liam, and Noah weren't just survivors. They were builders of a world where every lost soul could find their way home.